Welcome to another video. It's going to be a quick one. I'm going to do, in terms of managing my time better on the board, on the chessboard, I'm going to play 5 minutes of puzzles only, so a brief session, followed by a brief game or maybe two, rather than the 15-minute games, which themselves are pretty short, certainly compared to how long the game is in the tournament, because in the tournament I'm playing 90 minutes each. Each player has 90 minutes, plus you also get an extra minute per move. So 15 minutes per person is still much shorter than that. But today, really going to be focusing on being able to play quicker. So the full game that I'm going to play is probably 5 minutes, maybe with an extra 3 seconds per move, and only a few minutes of tactics beforehand, basically to warm up. With that said, here we go. So here's a check that's going to win a queen. It's always hard to go past a move like that. Just make sure there's no checkmate or anything before we double back and take the queen. Alright, now in this case, we've got a nice passed pawn here, which may become a queen one day. But in the meantime, let's consider our checks, because this one here looks pretty devastating, because not only is it a check, we pick up the rook, we still have the ability to push that passed pawn in the future. So that's looking really nice. Here we have a check that, we need to consider this first. It does force the recapture probably this way so as to not ruin the pawn structure. After that's done, we can take this bishop and we're up a full bishop there. Okay, in this case we have a check here. That does hit the king, but it doesn't necessarily hit anything else. But because it hits the king, it makes the king move. So the king has to move either here or here, and regardless of where it goes, we can then play this move, check. It doesn't matter if the king takes the bishop or if it takes the knight. After that, we can take the queen, and we're going to be fine. So I think that's going to be it. So far, so good. Now here we've got a check, which forces the king over here, and then we can do a back rank checkmate. So I don't need to calculate further than that. And guaranteed checkmate's always nice. Here we have a check, forcing the king here. And then we have this check, which wins the queen at the very least. So far so good. Here this comes to mind immediately. Is there a reason we wouldn't play this? I don't think so. Here, those look forkable, but they're actually not at the moment. We can give this check. You know what? They're not forkable, but they're pinnable. And that's good enough to win. Okay, this looks like it skewers both, and this one can't move away to defend the other one, and nor can this one. So this is going to win one of the knights. Almost looks like we can take this, but of course we can't. We can come here though. We can come here with a pretty strong looking check. Forces him here. At which point there's this, which ends the game. Couple more minutes of this and then we'll be done. Here's a nice check, which is actually more than a check. That's a checkmate. Okay, of course we can take this back, but do we have anything better, like any checks? Well, we've got a couple of checks. We do have a couple of checks. This check is nice, except he can take with the rook, but even then we can come up here, check, make him move, and then win a rook. So that still wins an exchange. If he takes with the knight, again we win an exchange. So this wins an exchange however we want to do it. But if we take the rook, we've just won a full rook. And if he takes back, then he loses the queen. So I think let's take the rook instead. And go down that way. Now, looks like we can just take this queen, but keep in mind he's attacking our queen. So why don't we start by taking his bishop. Then we'll be attacking his queen and attacking the rook at the same time. The only problem is, once we take this, he's going to take here with check. Now, once he takes with check, though, we can drop our bishop back. We're still attacking the queen and the rook at the same time. And that looks fantastic. So let's do that. Alright, now, can we go for some sort of sacrifice here? Check. If he takes with the rook, we have this check. Queen can't get back. So this rook's going to have to come back, and then we can, yeah, that works. We've mated him. last one, and then we'll move on to a game. So this check is obviously possible, and this is not really going to help him very much. We just give a check, and when the king moves, our queen's going to come in and finish the job. Alright, so we got to 15 on the streak there, and now we're going to play a game. This is actually going to be a 10-minute game, but with no increment. And we've got black. The white pieces have played d4, and lately I've been accepting the queen's gambit when that's on offer. And then I play this move, and sometimes it can be pretty hard for them to actually win this pawn back. What I don't love about this is it's not necessarily in the category of super kind of solid structures, which is what I've been wanting to play more of lately. But it's going to give them some trouble, I think. So let's play on and be a little bit considerate of how we want to do that. After this move, I think we can just play this. That shouldn't be too much of a problem, except that then he has this. So maybe we'll even start like this. This bishop looks a little bit out of sorts, doesn't it? Let's not take forever though. Let's... Oh gosh, look at me already. Look, everything's fine. Can we put pressure on this pawn? Let's fianchetto this bishop. I might end up putting this bishop here to, even though it awkwardly blocks this pawn, just to put a bit more pressure here. Alright, so he's defending this pawn, understandably. I could put a bit more pressure on it if I want. Only thing is he can take. But then I take here, he takes back in one way or other, but it does open up my bishop to do that sort of thing. So that might be nice. In the meantime, I will put my bishop here. Let's hold on to this pawn as long as we can. If he does this, I take, and if he does this, well, I can move my bishop, can't I? I could play something like this as well. Hang on, if he does this, take, and then pushes this, my bishop does have to move there, right? So why should I love that? I'm going to bring my knight across here. This seems really, really dubious, what I'm doing. Seems really dubious. Yet, I'm doing it anyway. My king's still stuck in the middle, but at least now this square is better controlled. I am up a pawn. And hopefully I'm not going to get too far down on time. Now I want a castle, I would imagine. I've got to get this guy in the game, so let's do that. He probably wants to play this. That's almost a certainty at this point. So I'm just going to include this move, so that after this take, he either takes with the rook and looks at nothing, and opens up my rook. I'm certainly not going to castle on this side of the board. That's almost certain. If I do something like this, and he does this, I can just jump my knight over here, so I'm not too afraid of that. I probably should develop this knight this way before he closes this option off. But him closing this option off is not the end of the world. My knight can still come out this way. After I castle, my knight's looking a little bit stranded. So he decides not to do that. He's attacking this, trying to prepare this. That's the basic idea here. Which makes a lot of sense. Well, I might as well just continue on. If he takes, I'll take back. Maybe I will castle this way, you never know. So we get that trade. Now I'm expecting this move, but my knight does still do something here, and in the meantime I can bring this rook across and pin this pawn. But maybe I want to take here first. Take once. If he takes back, I can take again. If he takes back again, hitting my queen, that's the only issue to consider, is that if after takes he takes with the knight immediately, hitting my queen, fine. I take back, and then when he takes, I bring the rook across. And it's going to be hard for him, very hard to maintain this pawn. But why not just bring the pawn across immediately? He can't take here because he loses the queen. So let's do that. I'm going to bring this across. And I'm going to argue that I'm going to win this pawn with my 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers, and he's only got 1, 2, 3 defenders. It looked like there was only not enough defenders, but bringing this guy in to immobilize the pawn could make the difference. Now, I'm a bit low on time. He goes for it, gives up the queen for a bishop. Oh, there's probably not a bad idea there by him actually at all. Probably not a bad idea, but I do have a lot of material right now. So I think the tempting move is simply to try and trade some of this material, because the more we trade, probably the better off I'm going to be. I'll just have a quick look to see if there's anything else that I can do. I could maybe think of something like this as well, but I think it can't be too wrong playing a move like this. This pawn structure is relatively self-sufficient at the moment. He does trade, and he's going to bring the rook here, and that's fair enough. Now, where do I want to put my queen? Well, lots of options, really. I don't really want to put it anywhere it's dangerous. I think here, where I take this possibility away from his knight, makes a lot of sense. And I think we're looking pretty good. Here. I mean, we do have a lot of extra material. The plan with this knight sort of ties this knight down. This bishop's not really doing anything at the moment. Doesn't have prospects to do much either. So it's kind of hard for him. This knight, maybe it can jump here. I guess it can jump there too. But, okay, what from there? What are you going to do from there? My knight, on the other hand, can do something like this. And this, if it wants. It's not doing a bad job where it is. That also must be said. I could do something like this, but I don't want to drop this pawn. So this is probably something of an important moment. Why don't I just improve my bishop this way? I mean, my bishop is good on this diagonal, but I've got to get rid of this knight so that my bishop can actually operate. If take, he takes, take, he takes, do I have anything there? I don't think so, but what about I come here and pin this knight? I can pin this knight, meaning the knight can't move away really anywhere. Well, actually it can. There's that rook is defended multiple times. I could move my queen somewhere like this, but then I'd drop this pawn. So I just got to spend a little moment here to make sure I'm coming up with the correct next plan. Maybe this, this, and this. It's probably pretty sensible. Let's do it. Opens up my bishop. Gives my knight some routes to go to. That can be nice. Keeps my position solid. Doesn't spend too much time. And let's just continue on. Now, he might want to sacrifice this and this. But I think that he's going to be giving up too much material there, potentially. The moment he does this and I take, he takes, yes, he's attacking my queen, which has to stay in contact with my knight. But it can. It can. And I'm going to be attacking various other pawns at that point in time. So don't think he can really afford that now. He wants to move this. I don't have to allow it though. I can come here and attack this. And I can come here on the move after. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I can also just take this off the board immediately. I think that also makes sense given how things are so far going. But I'm going to come up here to start with and just prevent him from playing this idea that he wants to play. I'm attacking this bishop, which he certainly doesn't want to allow to take. And now we can continue on from here. I could play something like this, but again, I don't want to lose this pawn, so I could also consider something like this. And after take, now that my knight does a nice job there, it's quite nice really. But we have to continue on. We do have to continue. This hits the knight, so he has to do something about it. Where does the knight otherwise go? Maybe here. I don't think I want to mess with any of that at the moment. I could do something. I have to do something. The question is what? I've got plenty of time. I want to keep it that way as well. What would I want to do if I was him? That's always a good question. Does he want to play something like this? Probably not. Seems to simplify things for me a bit. I could also just move my knight back again. I think I'm okay with that. I could consider this move. And if he wants to trade... In fact, if he takes, I can take here. And then if he takes here, it's a check. He takes... Don't love that, but I could definitely consider this. If he takes, take, and then, for instance, I come here. Do you know what? That has to be good for me. That has to be good for me. So let's do it. So I'm just preparing. My knight is here at the moment. If he takes, I'm going to take back. I'm threatening this pawn. I'm also just sitting on his position. Nicely guarded by my pawn, which itself is guarded by a pawn, which itself is guarded by a pawn. So relatively stable. And, you know, if you want to eliminate this knight, you either... Well, it doesn't matter really how you trade it. Even though here you win a pawn, you also allow further trades. And after this move... what do you do next? You know, your rook's not really threatening anything. Meanwhile, I'm threatening to go check and win this pawn. With, you know, tempo on both of these pieces. Everything seems to be somewhat collapsing. So, yeah, you win a pawn here. But I simplify everything, and I'm still going to be up by one pawn. And the task is going to be relatively simple. So that's going to be the plan. If he takes... I'm going to take back, so I'm just going to pre-move that one straight away, and we'll see. He's going to be thinking about what to do. He'll be thinking about what to do. So he hasn't done that. He's moved his knight away instead, potentially giving us this pawn. If we want a pawn, we can take a pawn, hitting the rook, and once the rook moves... Oh, yeah, I think we have to do that. It's really hard to not do that. We could also take here, but then he takes here with the pawn. So if we take this, we can always come back. Let's do this. We can always come back here on the next move. We're now also threatening this and this. And at the very least, we're possibly just going to retreat back to the square we were on. And that's going to be it. Now we take this. We're defending this. We're attacking this. This is obviously going in our favor. A very unusual game in some respects, not really the way I wanted to play in terms of, you know, the Queen's Gambit Accepted sometimes being a bit, getting you into some interesting structural positions. And I'm just going to bring this all the way back. Question is where to? Where to? Or I might even just bring the knight back. Might just bring the knight back. Because I don't want to bring this back and then get it shut off by his pawn, have to give it up. And then he takes the knight. So here my knight's really safe. Protects my bishop, and then my bishop can come back. My knight can also come back in future. So this is very obviously winning. Probably he'll resign soon. And I think we'll call it a session. But let's not fall asleep. This pawn can't move, that's for sure. We take. When he takes back, we take. His bishop is just completely useless. Completely useless piece. My king lacks some cover, but he doesn't have any ability to really trouble me there. So he pushes the pawn anyway, so I think I would take this. Is he want to get then a check here? Doesn't really make a difference. So I'll take it. And I've got this pawn. He goes for this. That's surprising. Frees up his bishop, I suppose. I can give this check. What else can I do? Many, many things here. I can give this check and then win this pawn. That can't be bad. So I'll just be careful for a sec. He wants to win this pawn and then undermine basically everything else in my position. But if this check he moves, I take here and he takes this pawn. He's then going to fall prey to this check, and I take there. So I'm going to do this. This pawn is indirectly defended, if in fact he moves the king here. What else is he going to do? Give up one of his pieces? So I'm going to take. This pawn is poisoned. He takes it anyway, so check, and now we're going to take this off the board. He'll resign now, or if not, doesn't matter. Obviously we've got these 3 passed pawns, we've got a queen versus a knight, and we've got a queen versus a rook, and we've got a lone knight. No danger to the king whatsoever. And let's just push. There's nothing he can do. Except maybe try and run the clock down. Remember, there's no increment, so... But, you know, I'm going to win that one all day, every day. We have a real quick look at objectively how that was played. Accepted the gambit. Then played this idea of c6 and b5, taking on a slightly strange structure. You know, and possibly delaying castling, but it's okay. And then I went to fianchetto this bishop, which still seems fine. Just looking at the computer evaluation bar, it's all still pretty even. Fianchettoed the bishop, he brings the knight out. And then I brought this bishop here. Again, very kind of awkward in some senses, blocking this guy. And I think this might have been a mistake because it allows this idea, as I had mentioned during the game, but that's actually not correct. That idea would still be a mistake. Not sure why, but something to look at later. Anyway, he just played on, and he's got a slight advantage, but that's it. I just found a way to continue developing. He castled. And then I came back to provide more support to this square. Now, objectively, he's a little bit better, and I'm not super solid, but I'm not sure where my weaknesses are. Preventing his ideas. And everything's looking pretty good. Here I just continue developing. Computer says relatively it's even. He might have a slight advantage, but after takes and takes, he played this idea d5, and now I have an advantage. I think I prosecuted it correctly, bringing the rook across, but we'll see. Pinning this pawn and just attacking it again. And I think here he went for an interesting idea, but one that really doesn't work, of taking the bishop, giving me the queen, taking a pawn, and taking my rook. But I just have too much material here. And my position's nice, so I was able to basically just to pretty simply here trade pieces. Put my queen back on a nice square. And then here, you know, I'm happy that I played with good time management here, as well as relatively good accuracy. Brought my knight down here. I don't think that's a bad move. No, it's good. And then brought my knight up. And then this decision to just sit right up in his grill. Again, if he takes and wins this pawn, fine. But I take this, he takes back, and then I was going to come here. And I would say that the evaluation bar is going to remain very much in my favor, which it does. Because what's this rook doing? There's no checks. You can't push this pawn without losing the rook. This knight's still very much maintained in its stables here. And I might be threatening check and then take this, so he doesn't like any of those things. Which is why he left the knight alone and just tried to do something else with his knight. But now he's left this pawn off, and from here it was pretty much simple. The last point was here I didn't come back somewhere like this because I didn't want this to occur, which would still be fine for me, I'm sure, because he takes my bishop. And now I see when I actually take back, my queen would have actually defended the knight, so that still would have been fine. But regardless, bringing the knight back this way, where it's perfectly safe, was also a very nice way to do it. And then he basically just collapsed. This was a nice last tactic to realize this was a poisoned pawn, which he forgot. And after taking that, push the pawn and it's all over. So, okay. Pretty good. Yes, the losing streak is over. But the good thing is, played relatively quickly, relatively accurately, and we're going to try and keep that up in future. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.